And live on YouTube, I see the connection is great with another amazing guest, Kyle Daniels, that will blow your mind. You'll see what I'm talking about, my fearless friends, because I got to Kyle's biography a few days ago, and I have so many questions for him that I had to really be mindful since I don't want to keep Kyle for 4 hours today. It'll only be for around 30, 40 minutes, but you will see what amazing achievements he has. And now, since you're talking properly, going on IG as well. Okay, let's see if all works out here as well. Okay, waiting for the connection. And we're live on IG as well with the amazing Kyle Daniels. Wow, you are going to love this podcast as much as I did preparing for the questions. And I advise you to get your pen and paper ready because this is going to be massive. We have here someone that has lost 20 kilograms plus by putting in practice his own work and knowledge. And this guy has worked so much for everything that he has. Okay, if you are ready, Kyle, I'm going to start the actual Spotify recording. I am really so excited. My goodness, my goodness. Okay, and starting the actual recording in 3, 2, 1. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Unlock Your Greatness and Step Powerfully into Your Vision with Kyle Daniels for episode number 39. I have got to say that I have not been this impressed in a very long time because my amazing guest has lost more than 20 kilograms and has gone from being afraid of speaking in public to a TEDx international stage speaker. How impressive is that? I'm going to share with you a few words about Kyle. I'm going to try not to talk too much since I want him to do most of the talking today because he sure has a lot to teach us. Kyle Daniels, the founder of Coached Success, is an entrepreneur, speaker, and coach from South Africa. Kyle offers mental strength training for those pursuing a life of excellence. He is helping professional athletes and entrepreneurs, athletes of the mind, get the mental edge. Athletes of the mind, I love this, Kyle. What a great metaphor. Kyle is also extremely passionate about helping others overcome personal challenges so that they can live life as their highest selves and experience life in all its abundance. Kyle is also on the cover of Men's Health magazine, and he has conquered his fear of public speaking and delivered a TEDx talk on an international stage. Kyle, welcome. What a privilege to have you with us today.
Hello, Roxana. It's my pleasure.
Kyle, you have gone from extremes on the negative side to some positive extremes that took a lot of work, a lot of perseverance, and so much ambition. Can you please share with us your story? How did you get to have such amazing results with your own body, first of all?
Mhm. So, going back to when I started my weight loss, right? Initially, throughout my high school career, I wasn't into any type of sport, so I wasn't physically active. I didn't see myself as being talented in any sport, and that stopped me from actually pursuing it. So, what happened is, right after I graduated, I actually fell into a depressive state because I graduated with a degree, thinking that my life was going to change after graduating, fighting so hard for this degree, this thing, and then nothing changing, being unemployed at home. And what happens is I just started going downward, sleeping late, feeling sorry for myself, being very much in a victim mode, like blaming the fact that South Africa has a high unemployment rate and everything. So there's lots of things that contributed to it. But then what happened is that there was a shift, right? And I'll talk a bit about the shift. I'm sure you will ask about um, my fear of public speaking, but that was actually the initial push that I needed. And that pushed me to start training, starting to say, you know what, I always had a goal of being in a magazine, one of the men's health magazines, always seeing these guys and things in it. And I just challenged myself. I said, I'm going to do this. And I started training, started falling in love with training and getting physically fit. And I think the physical fitness element, because it takes so much to really pull yourself out of the difficult spot, that I also had a mental transformation that if I could achieve this, what else could I achieve in my life? And I basically just use that as a building block and continuously build on that. So that is how I started my fitness transformation in a sense.
You said something that I'm enjoying a lot since I'm also into fitness, into training. I work out as much as possible. How do you get to fall in love with training? What would be the first step?
So the first step is obviously anything beneficial for us, right? Something that's going to help us grow is initially going to be difficult for us. So we need to realize that when we start something new that is challenging, that we know is going to be rewarding, that we're going to face resistance. And sometimes we have to push beyond that resistance. So the initial part of starting to train was difficult. I couldn't even run 1 kilometer and just be like on the ground, trying to get oxygen in my lungs. So it was very difficult initially, but as I stuck with it, started pushing through that, I started seeing the results. I started getting physically fitter. My mind started getting stronger. Now I could go from 1 kilometers to 5 kilometers before I knew what I was doing 10 kilometers. So I could see the progressive improvement in my overall health, my physical fitness, but also the weight coming off. And I think that was what started pushing me to continue. And I think the part that made me really fall in love with it was that I started running in the forest, right? So I used to start doing trail running. And this actually had another knock-on effect because then I started falling in love with nature. Before, I saw nature, but I never appreciated it. But when I started running into it, running in on the trails, surrounded by trees, and you're there for 10 kilometers. Yes, you have music in, but you're just in your mind. And I just started looking around and just started appreciating the things that so often we take for granted, we don't notice anymore. And I think that the fact that I fell in love with nature just made it so much more easy and fun for me to continue this journey.
Wow, thank you for saying this. This is really inspiration and it gets people to also focus on what is around us, be more present, and enjoy what this beautiful earth is actually giving us. This is awesome. It's great that you are living in beautiful Thailand and nature is
Yes.
very giving there. Oh my goodness.
Very.
Kyle, you mentioned that entrepreneurs are athletes of the mind. I'm loving this metaphor. How do you think that an entrepreneur needs to work on their mindset first of all? What would be the first step to keep up with all the changes and all of the challenges?
I would definitely say that, in terms of mindset of entrepreneurs, always understand what is the outcome that they want, right? Because why they're starting or why they're pursuing business. So having your sights on what the outcome, the vision is, and then always using that as your North Star per se, but then also bringing it back to the present moment in terms of, okay, what sacrifices am I prepared to make right now? What cost or what's the price I'm willing to pay in order to achieve this vision, right? Because something we often forget is that everything in life comes at a cost, at a price. And the price doesn't necessarily have to be financial, right, or monetary. Usually it's time. It's time away from friends. It's not seeing or visiting somebody you haven't seen in a long time. So there's lots of sacrifices, whether it's time, energy, spending, not getting to spend celebrations with people. So acknowledging that these are the things that it has to take in order to get there to this North Star, this vision that we have. And I think that that's a framework or a mental framework that entrepreneur needs to get into in order to really achieve or bring their vision to life. Because remember, what entrepreneurs ultimately do is taking something that's in their mind and bring it to reality. And in life, there's always a cost to everything. And it's acknowledging what is the cost I'm prepared to pay. And then just growing with that.
This is very interesting, and it got me thinking that sacrifice or compromise could be maybe on the
Mm-hmm.
same page. What do you think about that? How much do you think that an entrepreneur should go in order to pursue their dreams? Is there a limit?
There is no limit. It depends on the individual, right? And once again, it's important for the person to know themselves, right? Or at least have clarity on why they're doing what they want, what their mission or their purpose is in life, and also what their values are. Because for one person, sacrificing time with family is okay, whereas for another person, it's not negotiable. They're not really prepared to sacrifice seeing their kids or spending time with their kids. So it's understanding that each of us have different different tendencies or values that are essential to us. And it's about saying, what are you prepared to do? What one person does, if one person works 18 hours, doesn't necessarily mean you also have to do that. You could say, I want to work 12 hours a day, but then understand that it might take a longer time to get there. Understand that there might be other sacrifices you have to give up, which might be time, how long it takes you to reach your goal, or even reaching the level that you want in a short period of time. So there's always something, like you say, a give and take relationship. But you don't have to give what someone else is giving. This all boils down to what is it that you want? How does giving up the thing that's important to you align with your ultimate vision, your ultimate goal?
Wow, you said some great things here. I'm writing
Mm-hmm.
things down because it's really inspiring. Can you please give us a few examples of your non negotiables so that our
Mm-hmm.
audience can fully understand how to create a life work balance?
Okay. So it obviously depends on the season, right? Because I believe that each of us can be in different seasons in our life. And even at a particular season in your life, something might be more considered a higher value for you, right? For example, I know that you're a new mother. So at this season of your life, you might prioritize your child over work, right? So it's also very important for us to acknowledge where we at in our life, what season are we in. And then I think that this thing can help us determine what is the realistic goals for this season, and am I prepared to pay the price? And then say, okay, how do I build the non-negotiables that are going to help me move towards this? So for me at this point right now, I would say my non-negotiables are running up to 5 times a week, right? So 5 times, and I would try to train 5 times in the gym as well, just to be physically fit. So those are simple non-negotiables. Also, whether it is trying to at least see the sunrise at least a few times a week, but it all depends once again on the season. There were seasons in my life where things were a bit different, right? If I should look back at 2 years ago, I would say that training was because there was a different goal at that particular moment. So training was a high priority for me, where I would train twice a day, okay, up to 6 times a week. So I always say that it depends on where you are in your life at this moment, okay? Looking at what are the important things in your life at this moment, what's your highest values, and then what is your short-term goals, your goals for this season, and then that will give you a better understanding, a starting point of how do you develop your non-negotiables. But non-negotiables overall are usually essential in terms of having things that help you move towards the outcome that you want. So if we say, for example, let's use the hypothetical example of trying to start a business. You want to start a business, let's say, and you know that you create a list or overview of all things that you have to do before you can launch your business, whether it is getting products, sourcing your products, setting up a website, and all these things, a whole list of things that needs to be done. So now the next step is saying, okay, how do I knock these things off so I can reach my target to have my business launched in 30 days, for example? you could say each day I need to do one of these things, which would be non-negotiable. So that could
Yeah.
be the non-negotiable. Each day I work 1 hour on setting this up before I go to work. Okay. So it's as long as it's small wins helping you move to your ultimate objective at this particular season or in this particular season.
I
Does
love
that
the
make sense?
flexibility. It makes all the sense because you can't go thinking that I'm going to do this for an entire year, this and this and this. Well, it depends because our priorities change. I love this.
Exactly. Exactly.
What would you say, Kyle, that the ideal lifestyle for someone that is very ambitious and very eager to start their business would be? How to make that gray area, that common line, to not have their business running them, but to have themselves running the business? Because young entrepreneurs, and it was my case at the beginning, I would be living a business. I didn't have a lifestyle. I would be working every single day. I thought, okay, I left my job. Now I'm going to be the master of my time. But I ended up actually working more than I did at my job. So, what would you say that the best advice would be to get a lifestyle?
So I would once again say that it depends on what your high priorities are, right? Because even in business, there are different seasons. So it's also looking at what season are you, in your business are you in? Because as a startup, you might be required to work 18 hours a day. You might be required to sacrifice weekends with your family. So there are certain sacrifices that comes with the territory. But it then also saying, also then things might be changing where you can be like, okay, you know what, my business is running now, everything's running smoothly, the systems are set up. Perhaps now I no longer need to work 18 hours. So it's more about being intentional based on the situation you're in, or season you're in at this particular moment. And then obviously projecting in terms of the time frame it will take you to reach the desired outcome, which could just be your business being profitable. It could be making your first sale. But you need to outline what are the core objectives that I want to achieve right now. And my core objectives is always what are the smaller wins that I need to achieve for this particular season, or in this particular season. Because I think what a lot of high achievers struggle with is that they they have this big goal, right? And we don't feel satisfied until we have achieved this particular goal. But that's not being intentional. Okay? Being intentional is saying, yes, this is my vision, this is what I want to bring to life. And I'm working towards it, that's my mission, while simultaneously also understanding that as life is happening, I'm also adapting according to the pace of it and acknowledging the things happening around me. And instead of just having the big goal as the main objective, you can have smaller goals that marks milestones in a sense, right? That kind of separates startup. This is where I'm starting first sale. Okay, getting profit, being profitable. So reaching a certain amount of revenue. So you can have particular or hiring first employee. Those could be little markers or milestones. And I think that these are better indications of a change in season perhaps in your business, where you can then say, okay, for the next phase, what do I want to achieve? What am I prepared to do to get to that the next milestone in a sense?
This is awesome. And it makes so much sense because we have nature with four seasons.
Mm-hmm.
Kyle, would you say
Mm-hmm.
that business and life
Mm-hmm.
have also four seasons, or is it a bit different? Is it a different number than four?
I definitely don't necessarily say it's no particular number in terms of how many seasons are in business or in life, but I do know that there are different seasons in a sense where what a season essentially is, when I mention season, is just changing of a phase. What phase are you in? What stage are you in your particular life? And even in our life, there isn't necessarily four seasons. Even though we can look at it in terms of winters and springs, in terms of the winters in your life, things are not blossoming, and you can look at it in terms of springs, things are happening for you. You can take a view like that to it, but overall, I would say that each phase tends to be distinct in a way where it's based on, what is it, or you evaluate where you at this particular moment. What is your milestone? You understand? So it's based on the individual, where they at, what they want, what their values are, what they're prepared to give, and obviously where they're headed. So it's a lot to do with clarity. Being clear, this also means that we have to do constant reflection, because every time you hit a new milestone, perhaps, or per se, you have to say, okay, reflect. How did things go? Did I accomplish the things that I wanted over this particular phase or this season? What were the downfalls of the person? The downfalls of it, right? And do I need to continue at this space? Do I need to speed up? Do I need to slow down? Just ask yourself these types of questions would then provide with greater clarity on how to proceed in the next stage, phase, or season of your life.
These are very good questions, Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just thinking, as you mentioned, vision, and I know that you work with people's vision and with their missions, and you also mentioned purpose. Would you say that mission, vision, and purpose are the same thing, or are there different nuances between these concepts?
So vision is, in a sense, what I would say is more of in terms of what you want to achieve, right? In terms of a goal, I would say it's your ultimate goals, your ultimate outcomes that you would love your life to be. With regards to purpose, on the other hand, is more related to your individual experience. And I love to tell my clients to always look at the pain. That pain gives birth to our purpose, because we all face adversities, challenges in life, and hardships. And your purpose you need to have a certain level of emotional connection to your purpose, the thing that you're trying to pursue. And usually, because of the pains that you had, it's a great way to help you discover your own purpose. So, pain and purpose are closely aligned, and mission is born out of your purpose. So, if I give you my example, or I'll give you an example of my life. If we're thinking about my purpose, I see my purpose as elevating people's minds and their lives, right? So helping them understand themselves so that they can actually interact with the world and achieve the things that they want. So I see my main purpose as a way of helping raise people's vibrations, right? Now, if that's my purpose, my mission is to be around or get around as many people, spread the message, the tools and the things that I've learned to as many people to have a knock-on effect. Okay. Whereas my vision is in terms of building the business to a certain level where I'm able to achieve the certain things or outcomes that I want. Do you understand? So there's certain differences, even though they're all kind of or overlap in a sense. So I would say purpose born out of pain, mission born out of purpose. Envision just the overarching goal of how you try to put everything together.
Great examples. Great examples, Kyle. Would you mind telling us about your business's vision? I see you have this great t-shirt, Coach to Success.
Yeah.
How did your business start? What is the story around this?
So initially, I graduated from university studying psychology. I went back to study again. I worked as a counselor initially, right? So I started working with people and obviously the challenges they face, trying to help them. But then what happened is when I started getting my own transformation, body transformation, I also had a shift in my perspective of life. And people started noticing the transformation because it's easy to notice a physical transformation as opposed to a mental transformation. So people started noticing this, and a lot of people wanted to start training with me. So my business initially started as physical fitness, right? I started inviting people. I hosted boot camps. I did trail running workshops. So a lot of I just encourage people to join me to become physically fit. But through the physical fitness, there was one main thing that I was doing, which was giving people the belief that they're able to do it. So I was using psychology in the fitness boot camps and trainings with the people. And I instilled a certain belief that they are capable of doing certain things that they want. And I could see the knock-on effect that this had. And then after a certain period, I decided that I think it's time for me to move away from fitness and focus solely on my main passion, which has always been just being able to elevate people. Yes, fitness is a great way to also do it, but I just felt like I needed to have greater focus on my number one priority, which was just simply to interact with people and spread the insight that I've been learning or the principles that do exist in life. And that is how the business kind of transformed into what it is today. Um, I I do see the business growing, continuously growing, and having other coaches working under me. That is the goal, and just being able to be a platform where people can get the resources that they need to elevate their life. That's the number one thing. So resources, having free resources, as many or as much as possible, where people can access things that provide them with insight. Because I remember when I started on this journey, that was one of my personal struggles, that growing up in poverty, there isn't really, people who you can look to be a role model, or look to for guidance. And that was very difficult for me, especially as I told you, when I graduated university, going down a spiral. So what what I started doing was I started just like reading books, researching things, trying to immerse myself in as much lessons and principles, self-development, just growing on a consistent basis. So I saw the fruits that this had for me, and this is why I also wanted to use that for others.
Education is the key. When nothing else works, as you said, you did have a tough upbringing. But thanks to your perseverance, you did have this natural tendency to do more, to be more. You didn't
Mm-hmm.
stop there. And I know many people, Kyle, with amazing potential, which, let's face it, we all have, that
Mm-hmm.
have stopped to such a low level on their personal
Mm-hmm.
development because, as you say, the environment gets to consume you. You don't
Mm-hmm.
even get to explain to yourself with rational reasons how you got to where you are. It just happens. One day you are eager, you're finishing university, you have a great degree,
Mm-hmm.
you have big plans, and in 2 weeks you get crushed by
Mm-hmm.
the reality around you. So it's important that you told this to our audience. Keep on
Mm-hmm.
reading, keep on investing in yourself with
Exactly.
even the smallest piece of reading. Just don't
Mm-hmm.
stop moving ahead, even if it's only a millimeter ahead, even if it's not a full step. But we
Mm-hmm.
need to keep on going. This is great advice. Thank you for this.
I love that. Oh, excuse me. This capsule. So I'd love to add to that, eh? And I read this quote very recently that, you know, wisdom is simply the consistent or the desire to consistently seek knowledge. And I think that if we can all move into a frame where or look at life in a way that we don't have all the answers, because I think a lot of people fall short of achieving what they can because they feel that they've already arrived, because they feel that they've already reached their potential or maxed out. But if we can realize that there is so much that we don't know, then why would we robbing ourselves from this? And this is what I would add to the part where you said, continuously learn, continuously read, seek knowledge, because knowledge becomes wisdom.
You are so right. And even if, I really believe this, even if we don't get to apply it on the spot, let's
Mm-hmm.
take my case for example. I'm a translator. I graduated with my master's degree. I tried for a few
Mm-hmm.
months. It was awful. It was so much work that I would get up at 6 in the morning and go to bed at 12 midnight. I did this for a
Well,
few days, then I realized, okay, money was kind of nice, but I thought, okay, I'm going to leave the translations aside for a while and focus on something
mm-hmm.
else, focus on foreign languages, but in a different way. But then, in a few years, as I began to grow my business, having the great knowledge from the
Mm-hmm.
master's translations really helped me. So, yes, knowledge gets into wisdom. And I may say, even if it's not applied on the spot, it's there. Maybe you will use it
Mm-hmm.
in a few years, but it really helps with creating a base for your development.
Exactly.
Kyle, what has fear done to your personality growing up? How did you handle it and how do you see it now?
So growing up, I would say I was very tentative. Like I would say I had a lot of fears, and but I would always try to work around it, right? And I think that starting to face my own fears, whether it was the fear of public speaking, right, was or it gave me a new opportunity, a new way of seeing life. Because before facing my fears, like I told you, when I was young, I never played any sport because I thought you're either talented or you're not. But what happened is that I started realizing that skills can be learned, right? And you can improve, you can get better, depending on how badly you want something and how hard you are prepared to work at it. So I would say one of the biggest fears that I had was speaking, and not just public speaking, speaking in general. I remember even being at university, and I would not raise my hand in lectures because I was just so afraid people would look at me and I wouldn't know how to express myself. So I wouldn't ask questions. And that also came from a point of having a really low self-esteem. But fear taught me a lot. And even now today, I believe that fear is powerful, extremely powerful. But it's also how we frame in fears. All of us have fears, even up until today, we all have fears. There are fears that are essential, right? Fears of real world dangers. But then there are also fears that are more imagined, fears that result in our anxieties, we create anxieties for us. And it's also important to distinguish between the two. You have on the one hand real fears, like fear of a snake could attack you, right? Or hearing a sound while you're walking down a dark alley. That is real fears. On the other side, we have lots of imagined fears. The fear that if I don't pronounce the word correctly, people are going to look at me and laugh at me, or the fear that my business might fail, or and I might go homeless. So all of the fears we can explore, the irrational fears, which I like to call it. And even when I gave the example of business, is simply trying to look at how can you, or what is the worst case scenario? What is the worst case scenario that could happen, and how can you mitigate this? And thinking about all irrational fears that way. And one thing fear does is either we approach fears, right, or we avoid fears. There's only two ways that human beings deal with fears: okay? Approach or avoidance. And if we think deeper in terms of flight or fight or freeze, those all fall under the category of either approaching it or avoiding. Now, many of us are so used to avoiding our fears, so we try to stay away from it. We try to shy away from standing on the stage or being called out or doing something that we might cause us to become anxious. So in situations like that, where we want to start overcoming our fears and be intentional and deliberate about it, we can start saying, how do I incrementally start approaching this particular thing that I am fearful about? And obviously there might be some physiological effects as well, but understanding that how if you can work through that, simply incrementally moving towards the thing that you fear, knowing that you're not going to die, even though you're feeling like you're going to die, that is powerful. And that is ultimately what courage is. It's saying, I will approach this thing that is potentially, that has potential negative outcomes for me. So as long as it's not there, I would always say, evaluate the potential worst outcome, and then say, how can I still approach this? Obviously, evaluating the risk, mitigating it as much as possible, and then seeing how you can approach slowly. So that's what fear taught me. Fear taught me that courage is approach, lies in approach, as opposed to avoiding.
Wow, I really like this so much because if you get to dig deeper into your fears, you are going to see, okay, what I had here in my mind is not that serious. The worst case scenario is not something that'll make me die if I go to speak in front of people. When you start looking into this, you'll see that you're a professional, you have value, you got what it takes. These people will be blessed to hear your story, to hear your message. You are there to educate them. I love this indeed. Bringing fear into our awareness with a great question as what is the worst case scenario gets fear to pretty much disappear completely. And next time, surprise, you'll only feel excitement and happiness to do something that maybe a few weeks ago really scared you. Indeed, skills are grown. Courage is grown step by step. And can you please share with us, Kyle, how did you get from being afraid of public speaking on stage at a TEDx?
Yeah. So, like I mentioned earlier, when I initially graduated my bachelor's degree, that is where I went through a dark time because I was unemployed. And then I applied for the scholarship. And this is when I realized I actually had a fear of public speaking. Before this, I always knew I didn't like speaking. I just thought I was shy. But when I applied for the scholarship and I was shortlisted, um, had a conference where I needed to pitch why I wanted to be part of the scholarship. It was a great opportunity. I went and there were like there was a room full of like 30 people, all executives, high level executives. So they were going to choose, there was only 30 of us shortlisted. So each of them were going to choose one of us to come and intern at their place, right? At their companies, major organizations in South Africa. So half the intern morning will be at university. It's not like a great opportunity, but when it was my turn to pitch, I just froze. I stuttered. I could not get words out. And this, like, I really felt really bad after that. So obviously, I never got the outcome was never got the scholarship. So this made me feel even worse about myself. But what happened in that moment is that, first of all, I realized that I had a fear of public speaking. Secondly, I realized that if I want to change the situation that I'm in right now, I'm going to have to do something about it. And that was also very powerful because that's when I decided I'm going to enroll for a postgrad in psychology and I'm going to start getting my mind right, my body right. That is when I started changing. It was a shift in how I started approaching life. So from that point, I started looking at, okay, what are the core things that is contributing to my fear of public speaking? I realized that perhaps one of the core reasons is that even though English is my first language, growing up in Cape Town, I'm bilingual, so I speak English and Afrikaans. Growing up in Cape Town, we tend to mix the languages. Okay, so it's like we will speak both English and Afrikaans in one sentence. So I had that fear in a sense. So that was one fear. But the second was that I realized that the executives, the reason I could not speak in front of them was because I felt inferior to them. So that came from the reason I felt inferior is because I had low self-esteem. So I needed to work on my speaking ability and I needed to work on my confidence, my self-esteem. The pathway to my self-esteem was starting to focus on my body. So that is when I started focusing on my body. The pathway to my speaking is I started to speak more. I started to attend Toastmasters. I started getting comfortable with that. I started coaching people. So I just gave myself more opportunities to learn, or as we could also say, more opportunities to fail. Because remember, as I spoke earlier, we have either avoid or approach. So I decided to approach it, knowing that I'm not going to be good. People are probably going to laugh at me, but I knew the long game I was playing. So I had an idea that this is a long game. It's not for the short term. It's not about the results right now. And that is what was really powerful because I was about 24 years old, and time progressed, and before I knew it, I was competent in speaking. I wasn't scared to speak in front of people, but also I didn't see myself as inferior because I worked on those two core things that I identified. And like I told you, that was based on that failed opportunity when I went for the scholarship because I reflected, I sat back and tried to ask myself, what are the things that went wrong and how can I take ownership for this?
That is powerful. That is so powerful. You went from being the victim to a victor. When you take responsibility on your shoulders, magic happens. And I really appreciate that you assessed the failure with the scholarship. You took time to see, okay, what do I have to learn from here? And this was the turning point in your life.
Mm-hmm.
This is an amazing story. You should write a book on this because it's so empowering. It is
Mm-hmm.
so uplifting. And
Thank you.
our fearless friends, this is something that we can all do because knowing that you need to fail with every single step, being impossible that you know everything from the very beginning, is giving you this chance to make some great progress through tremendous lessons. You know,
Mm-hmm.
Michael Jordan, that I mention a lot, got to be one of the most successful athletes in the world because he says, I failed more than anyone, meaning that he
Mm-hmm.
did action. He got into action
Mm-hmm.
more than anyone else. He got his lessons. A great thing about failure, if maybe we sometimes feel too overwhelmed to assess the positive side, just
Mm-hmm.
take this into account. Next time, you will at least know what not to do. This is
Mm-hmm.
again progress. You evolve
Mm-hmm.
even if you take the negative. Let's face it,
Mm-hmm.
it's not too bad knowing what not to do next time.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes, when I do all sorts of changes with my business and I'm now scaling it, I have to put in practice all sorts of new strategies. I have my mentor helping me. My goodness, many failures, even several during a day. But I
Mm-hmm.
began to love them. As you said, slowly but surely, you began to love
Mm-hmm.
training when at first you couldn't run for a kilometer. You had to be
Mm-hmm.
on the ground grasping for air. I feel the same
Mm-hmm.
thing now with failing. So, our fearless friends, let us fail as much as possible and let go of the conventions of society where mistakes and failures are considered to be negative. They do
Mm-hmm.
hurt. It's not comfortable when you're
Yeah.
uncomfortable. But the great thing is that we progress. We learn new things. We see it from a different perspective. And this is what makes us winners. I think that if you don't stop, Kyle, you are a winner already. What do you think?
Mm-hmm. If people don't stop, definitely. What I would also I'd like to add on that you mentioned, right? So I love the quote Michael Jordan, and everything you said is correct. Trying to detach from the conventions, social conventions of or the narrative that people are saying about what failure is. If you truly want a remarkable life of excellence, if you truly want to go after the things that you have on your heart, then you need to be prepared to fail. Failure is not bad, it's a part of success. It's not separate of success. And it's very important for us to understand this. And this again, once again, brings in the importance of having that vision, right? The casting that vision, playing the long game. And this is what I love to call in my practice. I like to call it playing the long game. Because when we play the long game, we're not thinking about the right now. And human beings tend to tend to be, especially if we look at social media and all these things, is that we want immediate gratification. We want to satisfy the needs right now. Right now, we want to feel validated. Right now, we want to feel like, oh, we're successful. But at the end of the day, we need to understand that to get to where you want to go, there are going to be many hurdles and probably many failures. But we grow through the failures. The failures are simply lessons. And it's you saying that this does not define me. But the problem is that people get defined by the immediate result that they're getting. So instead of focusing on the immediate result, let's cast the vision a bit further ahead. Say that, okay, maybe right now my business is not turning a profit. But can my business turn a profit in 5 years? Do I think I'll be able to do that? And then go for it. If you are able to obviously sustain yourself that period of time, I guarantee
Yeah.
you will do it in a shorter period than that. But it's being able to play the long game, and with any single thing in life, even if we are looking at my weight loss, right? One of the most common questions I ever get asked is, how long did it take? First thing people see, how long did it take? Why are we so attached to time? It's because we want things now, in an instant. If you want something badly enough, you need to be prepared to say, I want this in my life, even if even if I need to spend the next decade going after it. Right? A decade from now, you're still going to be the same person. You might have grown older, but that's it. But now, at least you have this degree, for example. Maybe it takes you 10 years. But the thing is just understanding that time plays no real value in you achieving your particular outcome. Besides the time that, yes, taking your last breath. But if you really want something badly enough, you will be prepared to fight for it till the last breath. And so I mentioned the long game. And I think that we need to be very deliberate about saying, I'm playing the long game. So even when you're failing in your day-to-day life, tell yourself, it's failing now, but this failure is going to turn into success eventually. And I like to use this analogy, if we look at footballers. So I work with a lot of athletes, right? And what happens? Some of them, imagine a football team making it all the way to the finals of the Champions League, and poof, they drop. They don't win the championship. Is that a failure? It's a failure, right? It's a loss. But does that define them? No, they might feel sad for the day. Tomorrow, they'll get ready, they'll prepare again. There's the next season coming up, right? Because that does not take away from the fact that they can win the next championship if they start preparing again. So the failure you experience today does not define what you can do and who you can become. If you are prepared to learn from it, grow from it, and see how can you continuously elevate yourself beyond this particular challenge or hurdle for.
Wow, wow, wow. This is amazing. Long game is the word of the day. Well, actually, the two words of the day. I love this. You are so right. Nothing defines us unless we say it does. Time is so relative. And I did not ask you about how long did it take because I believe the same thing as you do. It's not the time, it's not the hours, the days, the weeks, the months. It's the actual work and the mental condition that you set yourself up to. This is great stuff. Thank you so much for mentioning this. And as we are approaching towards the end of our talk today, honestly, I would keep you for longer because I wrote a lot. I still have many questions, but this is for another time, maybe a live IG in the following weeks. Kyle, if your 10-year ahead self would give you an advice, what would that advice be?
So 10 years from now, what will it be? It will probably be to go even harder because I got really big dreams, like really big goals, big vision that I need to materialize. And I think that my 10-year, my self, my future self will probably say, let's go a little harder. You can go a little harder, right? So yeah, I think he would probably tell me that. Let's go a little harder.
Love it because it makes all the sense since our potential is unlimited. There's no limit to anything. We can always do more, we can always achieve more. So, your future self is very wise. You gotta give him the credit for this. Awesome. And Kyle, you have given us tremendous value today. I'm sure that everyone watching us and listening us wants to get in touch with you, to know more about you, to watch your work, to see your amazing, inspiring posts. Where can people get in touch with you?
So if they go to my website, right? So it's Coach Success as my t-shirt right back to front. So Coach Success, you'll be able to see .com. I do think that my website is currently being redesigned, and I think it will only actually be launched in 2 days' time. So if you can wait about 48 hours, you'll be able to access lots of resources on there, and also sign up to my email list if you like, where you can also be able to stay up to date with certain latest tools, insight that's happening, and so forth. So I would say just visit my website. I also have a podcast. I write a lot of writing as well, so I share some articles, and it's also the main hub where you're able to see any interviews that I do or any videos overall. So yeah, join me.
Thank you so much, Kyle. This has been amazing. This has been transformative. I have gotten some great information about fear, about life, about mission, about vision, and all this amazing talk about the long game. This is so inspiring to me. I appreciate you and I thank you so
Thank you.
much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Rosanna. I really enjoyed being on the show.
Don't leave yet, Kyle. I would love to take a selfie with you if that's
Okay.
okay with you in a few seconds.
Yes.
Saying goodbye to our YouTube friends. Thank you so much for joining us. Okay, closing YouTube.